Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking at a rivalry that literally shaped shinobi history, Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju. I mean, this isn't just about two incredibly powerful ninjas throwing down. Not at all. It's a total tragedy about two best friends who built an entire world together only to have their own clashing ideals tear the whole thing apart.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. 1. The Warring States era. 2. A clash of ideologies. 3. The Valley of the End. 4. The reincarnation cycle. And finally, 5. Unpacking the lore debates.
Section 1. The Warring States era. So, to really wrap our heads around how this rivalry went so terribly wrong, we have to look at the shared childhood trauma that forged their bond in the first place. Before the hidden villages even existed, the world was trapped in the Warring States period. It was just this brutal era of endless mercenary warfare. Small nations were constantly hiring shinobi clans to fight for land and power. But honestly, the most horrifying reality of this era, and the thing that really grounds the psychological trauma of both Hashirama and Madara, is that kids were the biggest victims. Young children were sent directly into deadly combat alongside the adults, only to be slaughtered by older, more experienced fighters. Both Hashirama and Madara actually lost brothers to this relentless meat grinder.
Because of all that, they had to grow up fast. For decades, it was just constant bloodshed between the Senju and the Uchiha. But interestingly enough, during their youth, Hashirama and Madara actually met in secret by a river. They hid their last names and bonded over the shared dream of a peaceful future. But, well, reality caught up with them. As teenagers, their secret was outed by their fathers, which led to these deadly clan clashes where Madara's brother, Izuna, was ultimately killed by Hashirama's brother, Tobirama. Finally, in their adult years, Hashirama offered to literally sacrifice his own life to prove how much he wanted peace, and that's when Madara yielded. This truce is what actually led to the founding of the Hiddenly Village, Konoha.
Moving on to Section 2, a clash of ideologies.
So they had finally achieved their childhood dream of a village, but man, that peace was fragile. This right here is the major fracture point. Hashirama believed in boundless hope, cooperation, trusting people, and building lasting institutions. Madara, on the other hand, he was just beaten down by the Uchiha's suffering. He developed a really deep skepticism, believing in absolute power and control. He was terrified the village structure would marginalize his clan, and honestly, he was kind of right to be worried. When Tobirama pushed for a democratic system to elect the Hokage, Hashirama ended up as the leader. Madara felt his clan was being completely sidelined, humiliated, and betrayed by the very system he helped create.
And this brilliantly illustrates the tragic dynamic at play here. Good intentions can lead to opposite outcomes, depending on your trauma and perspective. These were two friends who genuinely loved the idea of a better world, but they fundamentally disagreed on the price of that peace. To Madara, Hashirama's optimism looked like dangerous naivete. His pain had radicalized him into believing that true peace could only ever be achieved through absolute control.
All right, Section 3, the Valley of the End.
Eventually, that ideological wall completely collapses into physical violence. And the physical mechanics of this fight, absolutely insane. Madara literally brings the Nine Tails Kurama under his control and cloaks the beast in his Susanoo armor. I mean, no way, right? Hashirama counters with his sage art wood style, summoning this towering thousand-armed Buddha statue. Their exchange of tailed beast balls was so massively destructive, it literally scarred the earth, carving out a gigantic ravine. Later on, towering statues of the two founders were erected right there on the opposing cliffs, holding the traditional Seal of Confrontation hand sign, forever memorializing this apocalyptic battle.
During the fight, Hashirama impaled his best friend. He truly believed he had killed Madara to protect the village. But here's the massive, shocking twist. Madara faked his own death. He had actually pre-programmed the reality-warping visual jutsu Izanagi in his right eye to activate after his death. He essentially rewrote reality to bring himself back to life. So, the crucial takeaway here is that while Hashirama won the battle on paper, Madara surviving in the shadows allowed his dark, long-term legacy to fester and manipulate the entire shinobi world for decades to come.
Section 4, the Reincarnation Cycle. Let's move to and see how this builds, because this wasn't just some political rivalry. It was a metaphysical one, building into a literal cosmic tragedy. You see, it all started centuries ago with the Sons of the Sage of Six Paths, Indra and Ashura, clashing over their father's legacy. Because their unresolved conflict was just so intensely strong, their actual chakra transcends death and reincarnates into their descendants. The universe literally forces history to repeat itself, passing this predestined destiny straight to Hashirama and Madara. And after they die, That exact same cycle of hatred passes directly to Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki. They aren't just fighting over politics. They are literally carrying the souls of ancient demigods forced to battle until someone finally breaks the cycle.
Section 5. Unpacking the lore debates.
All right, now that we've covered the grand narrative, let's dive into some hardcore fandom discussions, straight from the analytical, power-scaling community. Here's a highly requested lore question for you. We know Madara drops the legendary perfect Susanoo when he's reanimated in the 4th Great Ninja War, right? But did he actually possess the perfect Susanoo while he was still alive and fighting Hashirama? A lot of fans point out that we only explicitly see the majestic attire Susanoo, which is when he wraps the Susanoo around the Nine Tails, in the manga flashbacks.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the incredible visual evidence fans have pieced together to prove he actually did have it while alive. By comparing his reanimated perfect Susanoo to the armor he cloaked Kurama in during the Valley of the End fight, the details line up perfectly. Notice the same straight blade katanas with similar hilts, which is totally different from his previous wavy blades. We also see that large, unique shoulder armor that only exists in the perfect form. And finally, the Kurama armor features the signature long, pointed Tengu nose and side-tied cloth, which are exclusive hallmarks of the stabilized perfect Susanoo. The verdict? Yeah, the clues strongly suggest he absolutely had it while alive. For sure.
Okay, let's hit another fast-paced debate regarding his reality-warping tricks. If someone theoretically managed to trap Madara in the Izanami Genjutsu loop, could he escape it? Some folks argue yes, because Madara knows exactly who he is, unlike Kabuto, who was desperately trying to become someone else.
But based on the actual mechanics of the jutsu, the answer is a resounding no. Izanami was specifically created to counter Izanagi. To escape Izanami, a user has to accept their true fate. Well, Madara's fate was dying at the Valley of the End. Because he used Izanagi to cheat that death, his entire post-Valley existence is a literal attempt to escape his fate. He is the prime textbook target for Izanagi. He would absolutely be trapped in that loop until he finally accepted that he's just a ghost of the past.
Which brings us to our final thought today. Years later, when Naruto and Sasuke had their own cataclysmic clash at the Valley of the End, the sheer force of their battle destroyed the towering monuments of Hashirama and Madara. But as the dust settled, the severed stone hands of the founders fell together, perfectly forming the seal of reconciliation. It begs the question, as Naruto and Sasuke finally broke the reincarnation cycle of hatred, did the lingering souls of Madara and Hashirama finally find the peace they dreamed of as kids by that river? It's a really powerful image that brings this whole generational tragedy full circle. Think about that and let us know your take on their legacy. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and keep learning.